Bumpy Johnson ruled Harlem with quiet authority. He valued loyalty above money and power. His dog, King, was his only soft corner. Enemies watched Bumpy closely from the shadows. 5 hired men planned a cruel message. They believed fear could break any man. That night changed the balance of Harlem. A storm was quietly born. The hitmen crossed a line they did not understand. They thought hurting the dog would weaken Bumpy. News reached Bumpy before sunrise. He did not shout or break things. He simply went silent for hours. Old allies knew silence meant danger. Bumpy remembered every face involved. Harlem held its breath. Bumpy called a private meeting at dawn. Only 3 trusted men were invited. No names were spoken out loud. Instructions were given calmly and clearly. Justice would come without noise. No civilians would be touched. The city must stay calm. The hunt began quietly.
The hitmen celebrated too early. They believed the message had worked. Each returned to his normal routine. None noticed they were being followed. Harlem's streets whispered warnings. Old contacts suddenly went silent. Doors started closing everywhere. Fear slowly crept in. Bumpy visited King's resting place alone. He promised order would be restored. Revenge was not about anger for him. It was about balance and respect. He planned to expose betrayal carefully. Every move had a reason. Nothing would be rushed. Time was on his side. The first hitman lost his safe house. Banks refused his cash mysteriously. Friends stopped answering calls. Police patrols increased around him. He felt trapped without understanding why. Panic made him careless. Carelessness made him visible. The net tightened.
Bumpy's men gathered information silently. No threats were made openly. Each hitman was isolated socially. Fear spread faster than violence. Harlem's underground shifted loyalties. People chose safety over money. Bumpy watched from a distance. Control returned to his hands. One hitman tried to leave the city. His bus ticket was mysteriously canceled. Hotels refused to give him rooms. Even taxis avoided him. He realized someone powerful was moving. Regret came too late. Running was no longer possible. Consequences were approaching. Bumpy allowed rumors to circulate. Stories grew larger with each telling. Fear did most of the work. No direct violence was needed yet. The hitmen began blaming each other. Trust between them collapsed. Mistakes multiplied quickly. Bumpy waited patiently. The second hitman was questioned by police. No charges were filed officially, but pressure followed him everywhere. Neighbors treated him like a ghost. Sleep abandoned him completely. Guilt turned into paranoia. Paranoia exposed secrets. Bumpy listened closely.
A meeting was arranged through intermediaries. The hitmen wanted protection. Protection had a price they could not pay. Bumpy never showed up personally. His message was simple and firm. You broke the rules. Silence followed the warning. Hope disappeared completely. The third hitman tried to bargain. He offered names and locations. Bumpy accepted the information calmly. Promises were never made. Truth was already known. Betrayal sealed his fate. Loyalty mattered more than deals. The story moved forward. Harlem newspapers sensed something unusual. Crime dropped suddenly in certain blocks. Whispers replaced gunshots. Order returned in strange ways. Bumpy's presence was felt everywhere. Enemies avoided his territory. The city adjusted quietly. A lesson was forming. The fourth hitman disappeared from public view. No one reported him missing. His associates erased connections. Fear erased friendships. Isolation became punishment itself. Bumpy believed fear taught discipline. Violence was the last option. Control was the goal. Bumpy visited an old church at night. He reflected on choices made. Power always demanded sacrifice. He missed simpler days. King's memory strengthened his resolve. Respect must be protected. Lines must never be crossed. Harlem needed rules. The fifth hitman made a fatal mistake. He spoke publicly while drunk. Bragging exposed his location. Word reached Bumpy quickly. This time, action was necessary. Quiet orders were sent out. No witnesses would be harmed. The end approached. One by one, the hitmen were confronted. Each faced consequences privately. No public spectacle occurred. The streets stayed calm. Messages were delivered clearly. Harlem understood the warning. Fear returned to its proper place. Order was restored. Police found evidence of internal conflicts. The official story stayed simple. No connection reached Bumpy directly. He remained untouchable. Experience protected him. Patience proved powerful. The city accepted the outcome. Life moved forward.
Bumpy gathered his inner circle again. He reminded them of the rules. No harm to families or innocents. Respect was non-negotiable. Power must be controlled. Emotion must never lead decisions. King's loss had meaning now. The lesson was complete. Rumors of 5 men being finished spread. Details stayed unclear and symbolic. Fear did not need explanation. Imagination did the work. Enemies backed away quietly. Allies stood closer than before. Bumpy's name regained weight. Balance returned fully. Harlem nights became quieter again. Illegal businesses followed stricter rules. Violence dropped noticeably. Bumpy preferred order over chaos. Respect created stability. Fear maintained boundaries. The city adapted quickly. Power settled comfortably. Bumpy adopted another dog later. He never replaced King emotionally, but life demanded continuation. Strength came from moving forward. Loss shaped leadership. Pain refined discipline. Harlem watched silently. Legends grew slowly. New enemies thought twice before acting. Old enemies stayed hidden. Stories of consequences circulated widely. Truth mattered less than belief. Bumpy controlled both. Reputation did heavy lifting. Peace was enforced indirectly. Order remained strong. A young gangster asked about fear. Bumpy answered calmly, "Fear is a tool, not a goal." He warned against cruelty. Cruelty invited chaos. Discipline created longevity. The lesson was remembered. Leadership passed quietly. Midway through the year, Harlem stabilized. Money flowed predictably again. Territories remained respected. Police pressure eased slightly. Bumpy adjusted strategies. He always adapted early. Experience kept him alive. The game continued. Journalists attempted deeper investigations. They found only half-truths. Witnesses stayed silent. Evidence led nowhere. Bumpy stayed invisible publicly. Power worked best unseen. Mystery protected authority. The legend grew. Bumpy visited old friends regularly. He honored loyalty openly. Rewards followed discipline. Punishment followed betrayal. Rules stayed consistent. Consistency built trust. Trust built control. Control built peace. The city remembered the warning indirectly.
No one spoke of the dog openly, but everyone understood the line. Personal attacks were forbidden. Business remained business. Emotions stayed separate. Harlem survived because of rules. Order saved lives. Years later, the story softened. Details blurred with time. Fear turned into legend. Legend turned into respect. Bumpy became history. History protected his name. The lesson outlived him. Balance remained the message. Bumpy aged but stayed sharp. He walked slower but thought faster. Mistakes were fewer now. Patience guided every move. Power felt heavier with age. Responsibility replaced ego. King's memory stayed alive. Purpose remained clear. A new generation tested boundaries. Bumpy corrected them calmly. He preferred guidance over destruction. Violence was always expensive. Order was cheaper. Fear was controlled carefully. Lessons were repeated. Stability returned again. Harlem changed around him. Buildings rose and fell. People came and went. Bumpy stayed consistent. Principles outlasted environments. Respect crossed generations. Fear adapted quietly. Control endured. Old enemies became stories. Stories became warnings. Warnings became traditions. No one crossed the line again. The dog's fate became symbolic. Symbolism mattered more than facts. Memory enforced discipline. Peace stayed intact. Bumpy prepared successors slowly. He taught restraint first. Power without control was weakness. Emotion was dangerous. Rules created survival. Survival created legacy. Legacy required sacrifice. The lesson continued. Harlem remembered him as firm but fair. Not kind but consistent. Not loud but absolute. Fear respected boundaries. Order protected neighborhoods. Violence remained minimal. Balance was maintained. The system worked.
Time softened public memory. Private memory stayed sharp. Those who knew never forgot. Lessons were quietly passed on. No books explained everything. Silence held the truth. Fear preserved it. Respect sealed it. Bumpy reflected on his choices often. He accepted the cost of power. Loss was part of leadership. Pain shaped discipline. Control prevented chaos. Rules prevented bloodshed. King's memory mattered. Purpose stayed strong. The city moved into a new era. New crimes replaced old ones, but boundaries remained firm. Personal lines stayed protected. The warning still echoed. Legends never fully die. They evolve quietly. Influence lingered. Bumpy reduced direct involvement gradually. Others followed his blueprint. The system outlived the man. That was true success. Fear became institutional. Respect became cultural. Rules became tradition. Peace continued. Years passed without similar incidents. No one repeated that mistake. The memory was enough. Consequences did not need repetition. Order was self-enforcing. That was the goal. Bumpy watched proudly. The city learned. Stories reached outside Harlem. Other cities took notes. Boundaries were discussed quietly. Respect became strategy. Fear became controlled messaging. Violence became unnecessary. The lesson spread. Influence expanded. Bumpy smiled less but thought deeper. Age refined his leadership. Mistakes taught better than victories. Loss shaped wisdom. King's absence remained personal, but meaning replaced pain. Purpose replaced anger. Balance replaced revenge. Harlem children played safely at night. That mattered to Bumpy. Order protected innocent lives. That justified harsh decisions. Power was a burden, but responsibility demanded strength.
Rules ensured safety. Legacy justified cost. New leaders honored old codes. They avoided emotional cruelty. They remembered the warning. Lines stayed respected. Personal attacks stayed forbidden. Business stayed controlled. Peace stayed enforced. The system survived. Bumpy's name became quiet history, not shouted, but remembered. Fear softened into respect. Respect turned into myth. Myth protected order. Order protected people. People protected the system. The circle closed. The dog's story was rarely told fully. Hints were enough. Imagination did the rest. Warnings stayed effective. Details were unnecessary. Silence was powerful. Lessons were internalized. Peace endured. Bumpy accepted the end approaching. He felt no regret. Balance had been restored. Rules had held strong. The city was stable. That was victory. Legacy mattered more than life. Purpose was fulfilled. Harlem continued without disruption. That was the true achievement. No chaos followed his absence. Systems replaced individuals. Rules replaced fear alone. Stability replaced violence. Order replaced revenge. The lesson succeeded. People debated stories years later. Truth mixed with legend. But the message stayed clear. Never cross personal lines. Respect creates survival. Discipline creates peace. Fear must be controlled. Balance must be maintained. The story ended quietly, not loudly. No celebration marked the end. Only stability remained behind. That was Bumpy's design. Power used carefully lasts longer. Revenge refined into discipline. Loss transformed into order. Harlem remembered the lesson.